in one of the mighty, all-conquering BMWs. In third position on the grid, Peter Brock, and you need no introduction to him. 8 times winner of the Hardy 1000 in the Commodore. Fourth on the grid, Charlie O'Brien in the BMW.
He's Australia's leading BMW privateer.
Then Colin Bond in the 2.5 litre, much smaller than the others, Alfa Romeo GTV6.
Number 1 driver for Alfa.
Sixth on the grid, Peter Fitzgerald in the Mitsubishi Starion Turbo.
Number 1 for Mitsubishi with Kevin Bartlett.
Seventh on the grid, his teammate, Kevin Bartlett.
Running back up to Peter.
Then, 8th equal, but higher up on the grid, Gary Wilmington in the Jaguar XJS.
Australia's only Jag privateer.
Next, Terry Finnegan in another of the many Commodores.
And last but not least, John Harvey in the Mobile Holden Dealer Team car.
And this is going to be all action, with notably on the left the European driver Gerhard Berger against the best of Australia, in particular Dick Johnson. So it's Ford Mustang in pole position, BMW second on the grid, Commodore third on the grid, BMW fourth on the grid, Alfa Romeo fifth on the grid, and sixth on the grid the Colt Starion. So that is 5 different types of car in the first 6 places, with another Starion, that of Kevin Bartlett, in 7th position, and it is 15 laps. Watch for the green. There's the red. And now there's a jump start there by John Harvey, if ever I saw one. John Harvey, the head man of the Holden dealer team, got away a little too quickly.
I think he'll have to be penalised, Murray. AJ Foyt couldn't have done that any better.
And Dick Johnson leads then, and over the gravel. Now, the saloons are probably, touring cars are probably going to be able to get away with it where others couldn't. But if you tried that in a single-seater, it would be no-go. And there's the Testarossa bringing up the rear.
Well, Murray, everything we alluded to as being the danger on this course on the opening lap happened just then.
And so, who is in the lead as they surge through, and how many of them are going to end up against the concrete blocks? Well, there's Ray Ellis going round. They're on their way now to Stag Turn, which is where they get towards the fastest part of the course. These cars with engines of up to and over 300 horsepower, and it's Dick Johnson leading, that's for sure, in the Mustang, building up a comfortable lead. Going through into second position, it looks like Peter Brock.
Yes, I would say it was, Murray.
And then I suspect John Harvey with that jump start. There, number 12 in the XJS, Gary Wilmington, coming towards us now. It's Dick Johnson. Watch the gap.
One of the Starions pulling out.
And Peter Brock, 05, that famous number, is driving his last race in this Holden Commodore. He's going over to drive in the European Touring Championship next year in 1986, and that car is going to be completely rebuilt. So Dick Johnson coming up to Mitsubishi Turn in the first of these 15 laps. That's the tight right-hander. And he's through it now, and Dick Johnson certainly building up a cushion. Can Peter Brock, who is in second place, do anything about it? In third position, sure enough, it's John Harvey. In fourth position, it's Kevin Bartlett. Fifth is Gerhard Berger. So the Austrian must charge if he's going to get up. There's Peter Brock, second.
Driving very nicely through the S's. I think now that the first lap Schmozel has calmed down, they're able to get their flow and their rhythm going. If they go through the gravel, they're not going to get any lap times out of it, but Peter was just clipping the curve there on that occasion, and he'll be attempting to whittle down the gap that Dick Johnson has got a handsome lead on him already.
There is Brock. Behind him is Harvey, and what a great race Colin Bond is driving in the smaller engine at Alfa Romeo. There's Johnson. There's Brock. Behind him, Harvey. Gerhard Berger has got up into fourth place. He's gained at least 1 place. So Gerhard Berger, who of course knows this course like the back of his hand now after all the Grand Prix practice he's had. And there is Colin Bond in the smaller Alfa Romeo. charging on the tail of the car in front of him.
Doing a great job for 2.5 litres, Murray. He really was flying in practice, and I think the lighter weight on the little Alpha GTV is helping him, and he was driving with great verve in practice, and it's showing up here today in the race.
Yeah, he's catching John Harvey, who jumped him at the start, of course, and if John Harvey doesn't get a penalty, I would be very surprised, in which case Gerhard Berger would automatically move up into third place. He's currently fourth. There is the Victoria man, the ex-Speedway, ex-Ovals, ex-Midgets, John Harvey. And that, number 42, was Kevin Bartlett, KB himself.
Yes, leading the Styrian charge and doing very nicely. Again, a small-powered car, although turbocharged, up there just ahead of Colin Bond. And Charlie O'Brien bringing up the rear of that group in his BMW.
Third, fourth, fifth and sixth virtually together. And the gap now between Dick Johnson, the leader, and Peter Brock in second place is 3.8 seconds. But look at this for third, and there is Gerhard Berger in the BMW, the young Austrian, bullying and barging his way through and going off, sliding straight into the gravel, into the tyre barrier, and that is curtains for Gerhard Berger. A nice try, but it didn't work.
Not against an Aussie, Murray.
Yes, you're dead right. Let's look at it again. This is great stuff. There's Berger. Now watch him try to take Harvey. Oh, no, you don't, young man. Straight onto the depot.
I'm not having any of this.
Locks up his tyres. Oh, well. He'll be against a lot of politer drivers tomorrow, Alan.
Yes, exactly. But notice how calm he was watching that tyre barrier come up. He must have had a lot of faith in the fact that he was going to slide to a standstill in the gravel on that corner. But it just shows how easily you can get knocked out in motor racing today.
And 10 out of 10 to Dick Johnson, the pride of Queensland. But there is the gap. And Peter Brock in second position. And behind Peter Brock is John Harvey, having disposed of Gerhard Berger in a rather peremptory manner.
I think, to be fair to Peter's gap, a lot of people will be wondering why he's so far behind that little Ford, but the Holdens haven't had their complete kit of homologated parts that they'd like to run, and that car will be much more competitive next year. But today it appears to be Dick's day out in front.
Well, this is the battle for third, and as you can see, the Styrian, the Mitsubishi Colt Styrian with its turbocharged engine, smaller engine in terms of displacement, but with the turbo, it's got the power it needs, and it's up into, there's looking down on the circuit, as in the top left corner you see the action. And what a fantastic circuit this is when you see it from the aerial view like that. And look at that picture in the top left. It's Harvey, followed by 42, Kevin Bartlett. And out goes Bartlett's hand. The yellow is waving. There's a problem. Colin Bond is there in sixth position. And in the BMW, there is Charlie O'Brien.
Charlie's being very aggressive here. He wants to get by. I think the Styrian is holding him up, but he just can't get by. The narrow tires that these fellows have, they can't just jump on the power every time they want to. They have to pick their spot to make sure the car's pointed in the right direction.
And how about that then? John Harvey's really going for it, and we've just had a message from race control that they're waiting for a report on what seemed to be a jump start, but Harvey's not the least bit worried about that. He's worried about the third position and preserving it in front of Kevin Bartlett. And there goes Charlie O'Brien in the BMW trying to take Bartlett, and moves across his path. And Colin Bond behind them in sixth position is watching the action every inch of the way, ready to nip through if any of them put a wheel wrong.
He's taking great advantage of the slipstream, Murray. He's got a block of flats in front of him. He can't miss. He's got no air to push his little Alpha through, but a lot of conniving and dodging for position here on Brabham Straight.
Just to remind you that still in the lead on his own is Dick Johnson, followed by Peter Brock. And this is the battle for third. This is where the action is, and there certainly is plenty of it. Number 7, Harvey in the Commodore. Then Charlie O'Brien, who is number 22 in the ex-Frank Sittner BMW. And Ted Grace, who's one of the great saloon car engineers, has been brought over from England to fettle that car. There's Colin Bond in the Toy Shop Alpha. He's broke his own car at Surfers Paradise in a big way. And there's Charlie O'Brien going for third. He's going to try and take Harvey.
Here we go. Harvey waved to say, after me, you can be first, Charlie.
Oh, and they just avoid the curb, but Colin Bond jumps over the curb. The Alpha takes it beautifully. What a magnificent scrap this is. This is lap 5 in this 15-lap race, just on 1/3 distance. And it is still Dick Johnson leading. It's still Peter Brock in second place.
John Harvey is working the car extremely hard, locking a brake up there on a couple of occasions. He'd be able to smell Charlie all over him.
You know about this, Alan. If you were in the driving seat there of car number 7, John Harvey, where would you be looking for somebody to come past you?
I wouldn't be looking.
Nice one. Well, there's Colin Bond, and he's now... Look at the way that Alpha is going. The Alpha, of course, is a very nimble car. It may not have the power, but it's certainly got the handling.
Colin will be laughing himself to death. He does laugh behind the wheel. He's a very jovial fellow, and he'll be saying, boy, look at these guys in front of me. Keep it up, boys, and I'll be coming third here any minute.
Yeah, well, 10 years, long time experience, Colin Bond. He's driven them all. And next year, of course, he's going to be a member of the 1986 Australian national racing team in a Holden. And that'll be something to see for us in Europe, because this is great stuff. John Harvey's still there. Charlie O'Brien. And now I see Terry Finnegan is up with them in the green and silver Commodore. He's up to 6th position. Finnegan is forcing his way through the field, the man who was leading Surfers Paradise until the race was stopped.
What do you think, Murray? Do these fellows have a chance in Europe? They're looking a bit tame out there.
Oh,
they probably
yes.
couldn't take on those
tough
Europeans.
They certainly could. We had Peter Brock over for the sports car race at Silverstone, and he showed us that he's a really class driver, as good as anybody in Europe. And so look at Charlie O'Brien. He's muscled his way through past John Harvey up into 3rd position. So now the BMW is in 3rd position, and Harvey's trying to take it back again, cutting through on the inside, but he's on the wrong line for the left-hander on this lap 6. Charlie O'Brien 3rd, John Harvey in 4th position, Kevin Bartlett in 5th place, Finnegan is in 6th position, and Colin Bond is down to 7th.
Well, Charlie O'Brien has definitely pulled all stops out here today. He didn't have this car going like this at Bathurst a month ago. He's doing a tremendous job here today, and a great job for his new sponsors, and another great Queensland star. Well,
there's a fine shot of the Starion, number 42, with race veteran 45-year-old Kevin Bartlett at the wheel. Age shall not wither them, and it certainly hasn't withered Kevin. Look at the way he's going. But look at the way Charlie O'Brien's going now. The man from Queensland.
This is one of the real phenomena of Group A, Murray, that a 6-cylinder BMW could take on the likes of a V8 Commodore and get the lead, and the smaller engine Starion there boxed in, Terry Finnegan giving him another run for his money. But it's tremendous competition. Up
front, while we're watching this race for the 3rd and further positions, it's still, I remind you, in the lead Dick Johnson, who's paying the penalty of being so far out in front that we're concentrating on this lead battle for 3rd. In 2nd position, it's still Peter Brock. In 3rd position, it's still Charlie O'Brien. 4th is John Harvey. 5th there is Kevin Bartlett. And what a different spread of cars. Terry Finnegan up to 6th still. Colin Bond 7th. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th together. Look at the heat haze, look at the crowd. They're loving every second of it, and who can blame them? And now Charlie O'Brien looks to me as though in the nimble BMW 635 3.5 litre engined car, he's starting to pull ahead. So is Dick Johnson, who is still leading, going to stay there? Will Peter Brock catch him? And can Charlie O'Brien do anything about it? Wait and see.
This is Jackie Stewart back live at Adelaide. We're in the touring car Group A class. We've got Dick Johnson leading, Peter Brock is 2nd, Charlie O'Brien is in 3rd place, John Harvey's in 4th, Kevin Bartlett's up to 5th place, and Terry Finnegan's in 6th place. We had a fairly heroic start to this race. Earlier in this telecast, right at the beginning of the programme, I prophesied that there might be trouble at the first corner on the first lap of one of those races. Just watch this. There's a gravel pit that they're just coming up towards now. There was a little pushing and shoving here in the midfield, and what happened was just what we thought would happen. This could happen again in the Grand Prix, so I hope some lessons will be learned from what occurred today by the Grand Prix drivers in preparation for tomorrow. Just look at it now. That gravel pit there is going to cause a lot of trouble. Cars riding the curb. Then as the midfield comes in, look at that traffic jam in there. There's nowhere to go for people, and they get up on that gravel. Once a car gets into the gravel, it's a real problem. It chucks the gravel onto the racing surface, making it very slippery for everybody else, and there's a very good chance, because of the lack of visibility, that more serious accidents occur. One thing is easy in a touring car: there's no open wheels to tangle up with each other, but in the Grand Prix tomorrow, if this occurs, you're going to see cars flying in the air. So that's what happened earlier at the beginning of this race. We're well into it now, so for live commentary, let's go back to Murray Walker.
Lap 9 out of 15, and Australia's hero, number 17, Dick Johnson in the Mustang, is slowly being reeled in by Peter Brock in the Commodore. There's very little in it now as Dick Johnson comes through to complete the 9th lap out of 15. Will Brock catch him, Alan?
Murray, he's a great, determined driver. He will be squeezing every ounce out of that little Holden that he's got, and given the number of laps, he's got a 3.1 gap to tear down. He's got just on 6 laps to do it. I'm not sure that he can.
There's Brocky in the Commodore, 330 horsepower under his right foot. He knows every ounce of the metal in that car, and he's gaining. He's catching the Mustang. He could do it, but catching Dick Johnson is one thing. Getting past him is quite another, as we saw when Gerhard Berger in the BMW tried to get past John Harvey in the Commodore, and he was unceremoniously bundled off the circuit. Now, we have an interesting situation here, by the way, because there's supposed to be a 24-hour rule in international car racing, in Grand Prix racing, which says that a driver shall not take part in 2 major races in the same 24 hours. And tomorrow, Gerhard Berger, who has already competed, albeit not for very long, in the touring car race, will be taking part in the Grand Prix. And there's Gary Wilmington in the Jaguar, who looks as though he's out of the race. We're now on lap 10 out of 15. You're looking at Peter Brock in the Mobile Holden dealer team.
It's a hard name, Murray.
Yes, in 2nd position. Now, as they come up to the midfielders, this is where lapping could result possibly in a place change.
Yes, it is, and there Kevin Bartlett taking advantage of the slower Capri. He's obviously slid back a little bit. We've got Colin Bond ahead of Terry Finnegan and Kevin Bartlett. Something has taken place there during the commercial break that we missed.
Lap 10, race order, leading Dick Johnson, 2nd Peter Brock, 3rd Charlie O'Brien in the BMW, 4th John Harvey in the Commodore, in 5th position Kevin Bartlett in the Starion, and in 6th position Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo. Or is it? Let's watch. Well, there's Terry Finnegan right up behind Colin Bond. Finnegan in the Commodore taking Gary Wilmington, who's touring in the Jag.
It's tremendous to see a little 2.5 Alpha, great cars, leading a homebred Holden V8. It's almost hard to believe, but there's the combination of power and weight. The Alpha is lighter, smaller engine, lighter weight, but more nimble, and Colin Bond has certainly got it flying around the circuit.
In 5th position, with Finnegan sawing away at the boot lid of the GTV as Colin Bond rides the curbs in 5th position. They're on lap 11 out of 15 now. Behind Colin Bond is Finnegan. Behind Finnegan now is Kevin Bartlett in the Starion. And my goodness, Finnegan, as we know from what Jackie Stewart just told us, is suffering from a bout of oversteer there.
Yes, he certainly can't hope to get it on Colin's tail by doing that. He's heating up the rear tires, the car is fishtailing, and he hasn't got the control he'd like.
Right, but the leader, Dick Johnson, has, as we watch Colin Bond. And by the way, hats off to Colin, because he's driving a car with at least 30 horsepower, less than the Alfa Romeo he is used to, which was destroyed at Surfers Paradise. The toy shop has, the Sydney dealership has replaced the car, and something flew off there. I don't know what it was.
back bumper bar cover, Murray. I'd
Say that again,
the
Alan.
back bumper bar cover. There's some
Right,
plastic
well,
covers on
there's
it.
a change there because Terry Finnegan is through, having taken Colin Bond, and in the process moved up to 5th position. And on lap 12 out of 15, Dick Johnson leads, Peter Brock 2nd, Charlie O'Brien 3rd. And watch this replay of Terry Finnegan as Colin Bond waves his hand. That back bumper cover flies off. Finnegan goes through up to 5th place. And the gap between the leader, number 17 in the Ford Mustang, Dick Johnson, and the famous 05 of Peter Brock is about the same.
Yes, Murray, I think he's going to have trouble whittling it down. Dick Johnson seems to be doing it in his own way, in his own manner, and Peter has to get on his bumper bar before he can pass him.
Well, you're watching the battle for 5th. Terry Finnegan, having thrown the Commodore about, has thrown it past Colin Bond, and I don't think, with Bond having been caught a pass, and there's Kevin Bartlett in the background in 7th position. Dick Johnson still well ahead, Peter Brock still 2nd, Charlie O'Brien. So it's Ford Mustang leading, Commodore 2nd, BMW in 3rd position, then another Commodore 4th. This is the battle for 5th, and Colin Bond is now going for it.
Yes, he appears to have got himself wound up again, Murray. Whatever that caused him a little bit of heartburn there a minute ago, he's now hounding the Commodore of Terry Finnegan's.
And I see he's saving himself a bit of friction there by getting the rear wheels off the ground.
Yes. Any way you can save the tires is always a help.
Well, number 40, 38-year-old Terry Finnegan from Sydney, who is a race car builder, and he's certainly built a nice one here. By the way, Dick Johnson has just gone across the line. He is 2 seconds now only ahead of Peter Brock. Can we come back to the race for the lead between 17 and 05? So, as the battle for 5th position between Finnegan and Bond rages, we're now starting to get a real battle at the front between Dick Johnson and Peter Brock on lap 13, with only 2 laps to go at the end of this one. And Peter Brock has got the gap down between himself and Dick Johnson to just about 2 seconds. There he is. There's Peter Brock. Now watch for the green Mustang. It's less than 2 seconds.
Yes, he's smelling him now, Murray.
Lap.
Yep. When you can smell them, he'll be smelling Dick's exhaust pipes. He'll be trying harder and harder, and there'll be no shortage of adrenaline going through Peter Brock's body at the moment.
And if you were driving the Mustang, Alan, where would you be placing it?
As far in front as I possibly could.
Or even in the middle?
Side even?
Now, this is this fantastic bit of the course, and you see how gloriously wide this Adelaide circuit is. There's plenty of room for passing. So come on, Brocky, let's see you get at it.
Now, let's not get too carried away with this Holden fan here, Murray. We want you to be totally neutral when you're with your first visit to Australia. But it's great to see Dick out in front with his little Ford, and I'm sure he's got this race under command. But it'll only take a light brake mishap or a tire deflating, and he's in trouble. Peter's certainly within grasping distance.
Bad news for John Harvey, not that he's in a position to receive it. He has been penalised 60 seconds, 1 minute to you, and that will move him from 4th position way down, and it will promote Terry Finnegan to 4th, it will promote Colin Bond to 5th, and on this, the 14th and last lap but 1, as you look down on the circuit, and the battle between Dick Johnson in the green Mustang for the lead, Peter Brock in 2nd position. The gap is down to 1.7 seconds. Charlie O'Brien is still 3rd in the BMW. Up to 4th place, Terry Finnegan, and look at that.
Oh, that's the whole back bumper bar. Good night.
Oh, well, cars go a lot quicker when they're lighter, I understand, Alan.
Well, that's true, but not when it's a danger to the rest of the field. This is a black flag situation.
Finnegan coming up. And it's Ray Ellis in the Commodore, of course, in a rapidly disintegrating motor car. And if he's not black flagged to come in, I'll be amazed. Well, anyway, there's Charlie O'Brien. That's the 3rd place man on his own. And here is the battle for the lead. This is lap 14.
I would honestly say that Dick could be in a little trouble. I wouldn't think he'd want Peter that close, or Peter's pulling out all the stops and saying, well, it's go or blow. I don't care. One more lap to go.
So the 1984 Group C champion, Peter Brock, is up with the 1984 touring car champion, Dick Johnson, on the last lap but one. Each lap is 3.8 kilometres, so Brock has got about 4 or maybe 5 kilometres to try and do something about Dick Johnson, but if he can find a way through, I will be amazed.
Those Mustangs have been known to grow when Commodores get near them. They get wider.
We'll see. Oh, Peter, and look at the Peter Brock right off. That's blown it. That's blown it, because I think that will give Dick Johnson the advantage that he needed. Peter Brock had clawed right the way up. He's not only, of course, lost time, but he will inevitably have disturbed his race rhythm. There he goes, off at Mitsubishi Corner as they came up to complete the 14th and last lap but one. And at the start of the lap, Dick Johnson, and they're on the last lap now, had a slightly over 2-second lead.
Yes, well, I think Peter was trying everything he could, trying to wind it up onto the pit straight, which is one of the longer straights on the circuit, and he just miscalculated, uncharacteristic, but nevertheless, I think it's given Dick Johnson the opportunity.
But look at the way that Peter Brock has regained, has closed up the gap. I would say that's less than 2.2 seconds, which it was when they crossed the line. And Dick Johnson has got a slower man in front of him. He has, in fact, got plenty of time to pass on the quick Brabham Straight to Ketterville Terrace. But if that man makes it difficult for him at all, we could get a change.
Well, this is great for Dick Johnson to get a win in the last race of the year. He'll be able to have a pleasant jump and pleasant Christmas break and go into the new year with a win behind him.
Dick Johnson down to the end of Brabham Straight into racetrack hairpin, the tightest corner on the course. Peter Brock there in the famous 05 Commodore in second position, now into paddock turn for the last time, the 15th time in this race. Keeping on the racing line, you can see all the black rubber that's been laid down by the Formula One Grand Prix cars. Now on the sweep down to Mitsubishi Corner, which is where Peter Brock went off last time, and he's right up with Dick Johnson, who'll see the Commodore being in his mirrors, but he's going to win because he's up to the line. He's over it. Dick Johnson has won in the Mustang. Peter Brock is second in the Commodore. Now there's going to be a gap before we expect to see Charlie O'Brien in the BMW, as a very, very happy Dick Johnson takes the applause of the crowd.
Yes, he's had a lot of bad luck with his car, Murray. It was new at Sandown earlier in the year with the Castrol 500 race. He had trouble there. He didn't have the run he wanted at Bathurst, and it's awfully, and as you know, trouble at Surfers. It's nice for him to win today.
A great victory for Dick Johnson and a superb second place for Peter Brock.
Thanks, Murray. Yes, Dick Johnson led from go to woe here this afternoon in Adelaide. We'll be back with more in just a moment.